Hi, guys, and welcome back to Finding Your Indie. I'm Bonnie Paulson,
And I'm Mandy Stevens.
and we are here today to talk to you about Brand Spotlight. Now, last week, you'll probably remember, and if not, go check out the video. We talked about what an ad account audit is, and we made a shameless plea for you to come and let us audit you. So I think we're going to do the same thing this week, but for brand spotlights.
Yeah.
I think it's because it's a little scary. I would get nervous and be nervous about it, but really it's just a learning opportunity to help other people and to help other authors in the same boat as you. There's a lot of people who aren't sure if their brand is in the correct place or not. They're not sure if their books are looking right or if they're ready for marketing. That's really what that we want to help with.
So what is a brand?
So a brand really is, it's the promise you're making. So think about, for instance, Tupperware. I know this is not authors, but it's all product, right? Tupperware has a brand and it works. If I hear somebody has Tupperware, I'm there. I want the Tupperware brand. And I do love the Tupperware brand. Rubbermaid has some phenomenal stuff, but my Rubbermaid stuff breaks. It breaks when I put it in the freezer, right? So your brand is a promise that you have. So if you are like, my brand is Clean Sweet Romances, for instance, mine, I'm going to talk about mine. Mine is Clean Sweet Romances. I have Westerns, I have contemporary, but it's clean, sweet, contemporary romances. So you're not going to get cussing. You're not going to have sex, which is where the sweet comes in. The clean means that there's no language. There's no like gory stuff. It's almost on the cozy spectrum. Contemporary means I'm not going to have anything historical. So nobody has to fact check when the scissors were invented. That's me. I don't want to do that. And then romances, you are guaranteed a happily ever after, right? Like that's super important with romances. Now, when you start putting those together, a sweet romance, you're looking more like Hallmark. So there's not going to be a lot of baggage involved. There's not going to be a lot of the dark stuff. There might be some emotional baggage in mine, but there's never really anything like on the page, right? So that's a brand promise that I have literally made to my readers. Now, let's say that you are the type of person who doesn't want to stick to a brand. That's okay, I guess. Like you do you. But as we've seen with IHOP, you should not be jumping brands. So IHOP tried going with the burger. No, you are the International House of Pancakes. Like that is what your name is. You cannot become IHOB. They tried, it didn't work. Don't do it. So stick to your brand. And if you're like, oh, I really want to I write YA sweet romances over here, then honey, you're not going to be writing dark mafia romances over here. Do it over here, a different brand, a different pen.
So speaking of burgers to pancakes, what are we looking for whenever we do our brand spotlight?
Well, if I'm looking for a hamburger, if you're telling me I'm looking for a hamburger and I find pancakes, that is not consistency. And I'm going to tell you right now, that's right there where we're going to stop and be like, okay, we really need to make sure that your brand is consistent. So if you're showing hamburgers over on your social media and you're showing pancakes in your books, there's a disconnect. And I'm not saying pancakes or hamburgers are bad. Now this sounds like a diet show. I'm not saying either of those is bad, but pick something and be consistent across whatever you're doing. Make sure your message matches.
And you're breaking your promise to your readers.
Yeah, which I do not like being lied to. I don't like promises being, I saw this one. Have you ever I've been to Lane Bryant. I love Lane Bryant, and they're for bigger girls, heavier girls. I got curves. So when I went there and I got jeans, I was talking to the lady and I said, so what exactly is the Lane Bryant brand? And she said, comfortable clothing for curvier women that showcases their curves. And I was like, yeah, I've never found a pair of jeans that make my butt look good and my legs look thin. Like I've never. I found 3 pairs there and I was like, what's up? They're sticking to their brand. Now, if I had come out of there looking like a round popsicle, I would have been highly disappointed. But I actually really liked it. So that to me is when you are being consistent with your brand.
So what do we think is important when we do our spotlights?
Again, the brand is super important. But we're not trying to be brats when we're like, hey, what's your brand? It's really important that you understand who you're writing for, right?
Yeah.
Like, who are you writing for? So if you are sitting here telling me that you write Christian space opera fantasy, great. I've seen them. That's a great catalog, great category. Awesome. If you're telling me that you write those and then I look at what you're targeting for audience and stuff, and you're like, no, I don't want to target that. that tells me you don't understand who your audience is, which is really what your brand promise is to. That's who your brand promise is being made to. I promise I'm going to make Christian themed work. I promise it's going to be space opera. Promise it's going to be fantasy. Like, these are the three things that you're saying, I promise. And if you literally aren't doing that, if you're like, oh, I think I write, like, let's just even say that you do know what your brand is, or you say what you know what your brand is. Just because you declare it doesn't mean that's what it is. But let's say that you're like, I write dinosaur romance set back in the time traveling days that comes to the fore, erotica, shifter, paranormal with a little bit of YA. Like, who are you going to target?
Yeah.
Who are you targeting, Mandy?
I have no idea.
Did you just shut down?
And then you end up wasting money, you know?
And yes, and time, because all of that is great. It might be a super fun series. It might even be like a comedy too. Like, that might be what it is. But if you literally can't say, I write sci-fi fantasy, I write this, and you don't have to have your tagline. You literally just want to know, what do you write? What do you write? I'm not asking you to write the same thing as Brandon Sanderson. I'm not asking for that. I'm not asking for you to write the same thing as Mandy, but I am asking that you understand the market that you're writing to. Are you writing to the YA coming of age paranormal shifter books? If you are, then there's certain things that need to be met. There's certain requirements. You have to have a shifter. You cannot write paranormal shifter romance and not have shifters. Like, I seriously have seen this.
And I see people who are writing YA shifters and then writing spicy over here and then writing sci-fi over here and then writing women's fiction over here. What's your brand?
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. When somebody, because we all want to be in that position where somebody comes up to us at the store or at church or at work and they're like, oh, I heard you're an author. What do you write?
Yeah, you don't want to be like, well,
yeah. And I do that, but I have 14 pen names and they all write something different. And I can say, well, it depends what you're looking for. Are you looking for women's fiction? This is this pen name. Are you looking for sweet Western romance? You're going to find that here. Are you looking for apocalyptic thrillers? That's here. So if you can still identify what you write, I mean, you have to be able to say, this is what we write. So if we're sitting here talking to you if we're just sitting at a conference talking with you, you're like, oh, so what do you write? And you go into this big, long diatribe. Look, sum it up. I don't want your blurb. I don't want your synopsis. I just want to know what you write. I write cozy.
What do they call it? An elevator pitch?
Like an elevator pitch. Yeah. But really, because when you like the easiest way to really pick this out is what category do you fit in the best in Amazon? Where do you fit the best? If you can figure that out and you actually fit in there and not with all of the crap, because people will pick them based on, oh, I want to get a bestseller in a memoir, dog memoir, even though I wrote spicy romance, like whatever. If you can actually say that you write dog memoirs and that's what they are, and you're like, yeah, I fit into this category the best, then that's what you write. And that's what your brand should be based around. So you can go and find the readers who only read dog memoirs.
So how do you not waste your marketing effort?
You make sure that you know who your readers are and you go find them.
Yeah.
And you package appropriately. I've had this discussion with a few people. I think we had this at 20 Books when we were talking. We were there last year. Like, the biggest thing is, are you packaged? Like, did you wrap your present for Christmas? And then you're going to Easter? Or did you package, like, are you bringing a potluck for a picnic or are you taking it to a buffet? Like, you have to understand who you're delivering to, right?
Yeah.
Like, you just do. You don't go into a conservative rally waving a liberal flag or vice versa. Know your audience, right?
Yeah,
know your audience. And so I think that is the number one way that you maximize your money. And your efforts. Like, and again, I'm not saying write a book that, find a recipe and fit it and plug and chug. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying find your target audience and that's who you write to and be consistent with it. That's what we're always looking at. Yeah. So for instance, Aria Bliss, when we were looking at hers, or Taylor Blaine's, when we were looking at her spotlight, it was clear that she wrote romance. And that, remember, we were like, okay, it was YA, it was NA, but it was like, there were some things that weren't clear. So we were very clear it was sports. It was very clear it was contemporary. Very clear it was romance. So we were like, okay, we know for sure that she writes these. So based on the
Yeah.
packaging, remember we were like, is this older? Is she, yeah. Is it younger? Like what's the demographic we're looking for here? Keep it clear. Keep your packaging clear. As long as all of that is clear and you're delivering on that, it's cake. That's what we're looking for. That's how you make sure your dollars are and your efforts are actually being maximized.
What about genre hopping?
I know people who do it successfully. I know people who don't do it successfully. So genre hopping for me, in my personal opinion, and you can talk about what you think, Mandy, because I know that we both have different views on this.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do. And that's okay. I don't believe that they should be, I don't think it should happen in the same pen name.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too. So yeah.
Subgenres now, I believe that can happen in the same pen name. So if like, let's say you write fantasy and you're like, I'm going to write a fantasy romance over here. And let's say you write fantasy romance. I'm going to write urban fantasy series over here. And I'm going to write a more epic fantasy series over here. Great. Put them on the same pen name. They're both fantasy romance, right? Like that's great. You'll find your voice. Your voice will be strong. You'll be able to brand them, whatever. Like that's great. You do you. Do I think you should have separate pen names? If that's what you feel is your brands are separate enough, great, do it. Like you do you. But genre hopping, like I had, like literally, I had apocalyptic thrillers, which were gross. They were gross. I had body parts flying places and right, like torture. Yeah, like really, really, really gross books. Also under the same pen name that I had my sweet Western romances. Like, what?
You
Why?
evolved. You realized.
I
This was
evolved.
a long time ago.
Yeah, this was. But when I did it, because I was like, why am I not making money? When I did it, it was almost immediate. Because then I was like, hey, I know who these guys go to, and I know who these guys go to very clearly. So what do you think about it?
No, I think that you should have separate pen names. I tell people all the time, I'm like, why are you writing this genre and then this genre? I'm like, who in the heck am I marketing to here, you know?
Yeah. Who are we trying to? Yeah. I mean, and as ad managers, Mandy and I have to figure this out. We're like, I mean, we have an audience for this one. What exactly are you looking at over here? Because I don't think that's a genre.
And when you have the two separate series under the same name, they're going to finish this series and they're going to want more books by you. And then you're breaking your promise because, you established this audience for your book. And then you're left like, what the heck is this?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where you lose people. And it's rough, but it is what it is, I guess.
And I think it happens a lot when I've seen people who are writing sweet and then they have naughty under one pen name and it just blows my mind.
Right? I'm like, oh, yes, okay. And that's okay. I mean, again,
And you do both well. I mean, they did both well, but it was just like you're breaking your promise,
Mm-hmm.
I don't read naughty, and then I do read sweet, and then I'm like, okay, well, this just doesn't I don't know what to expect from you as an author.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's what that's what people need to be comfortable with is, are you living up to the expectations that
And
you set?
even if you do it with a pen name, like we have, Mandy Stevens and then maybe Mandy M. Stevens. So at least the people who understand, okay, well, these books under this name are naughty. These books over here are not, at least distinguish them
somewhat. Yeah. So so this is how I went. I have Bonnie R. Paulson for my Western romances and Bonnie Paulson for my sweet contemporaries. They're the same contemporary sweet romances, but one's Western and one's everything else. Like that's what it is. They're all on the same Author Central page on Amazon because that's exhausting, but they're all separated.
So when it comes to brand spotlights, what do you think about cover design?
I've actually asked people to recover their books based on consultations that we've done. And I know that can set people back money-wise. But you're not doing anybody any favors by wrapping it in a Walmart bag. You're not.
So years ago, I'll tell you a story. Years ago, I had a book. I have a series of MMA urban fantasy.
Right.
Okay. I had a book called Submission. I do BJJ, or I was. So submission to me meant something different than submission to readers, and I had this guy, he was like buff, naked chest. My branding was so off. People grabbed the book and they're like, whoa, this is not what it was. I'm like, wow, this is really good, but it wasn't what I was expecting. I write urban fantasy. I don't write DOMs, it's a big difference there.
It is a big difference.
I have very little romance in my books. There was some romance in it, but I wasn't meeting brand expectations. So I had to change the
And
cover.
it's rough because I remember those covers were beautiful covers.
So the
They were
covers were
beautiful.
amazing, but
Yes.
it just
But
wasn't working. And
yeah, if it
sometimes
doesn't
you
work, it
have to
doesn't work.
say, put your ego to the side, realize that this is a business and you have to do what you got to do.
Yep. And I know you did spend money on the covers. I get it. Covers are expensive. They can be. Sorry. And here's
You
another
want to
thing.
sell books.
Yeah. And here's another thing. If you have a cover designer who is
Mhm.
not researching what's appropriate for the market and coming up with designs that are appropriate for the market based on what you tell them, if you're telling them this is a sweet Western romance, please market it, please, I need a cover design for that. Here's my blurb. Here's the tropes in it. And you're not, or you're not doing that. You're like, yeah, I'm looking for a book that has, I want it to look like this, and this. You're severely damaging the relationship that you could be having with your cover designer. Because cover designers, if you find a good one, they know how to deliver a solid book based on the category requirements. Like they know, and they'll do their research and they'll come up with mock-ups for you that fit the brand or that fit the market. Now, if you're sitting there going, I want it to look like this, and this, I was doing this series because I'm a cover designer too. And I did this series for me and another coworker, another worker or author. We were doing like a shared universe kind of a thing. And this was about 3 years ago. And I went in and there was a new release and I was like, did I design that cover? Like it looked exactly like one of the covers I had just designed. And it was released. It was a new release. I mean, it was identical.
I
Same.
remember. I remember.
Oh
And
my gosh. I was like,
series,
yeah. And it was not part of my series or anything, and not part of our world. I was
Okay.
like, that is not good. So I reached out to the cover designer and I was like, hey, I'm just wondering like where you got this concept because it's not even like, which whatever. Like I understand having similarities, but this was identical. The title,
Yeah.
font, everything was identical. Even the background picture looked the same, but the title itself was different, but the font was the same.
And the author was different. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just like, she said, oh, what are you talking about? And then she said, well, this is what the author told me that she wanted, detailed by detail. And I was like, you literally, so I sent her the links to the books. I said, you literally copied these. She's like, oh my gosh. So if you're a cover designer, look into that as well. Go and make sure that the specifics that they're giving you are not aren't exact, right?
I mean, but how would she have known,
I
unless she
know. Well, if she's doing market research, right? Because that series that we had, like if you just went into those genres, we were like those books were in the top 100 for a while, in the top 100 of the categories. So if you're doing market research, you can tell what is out there and what's not. And there was like 15, 20 books in that universe.
How shady.
It was sucky. It was really sucky. It was fine though. I mean, like no shade. The cover designer was great about it. She's like, oh,
Yeah.
we'll get that changed. It was fine. But it was just like, dude. And covers should be similar. Like they should have a similar feel.
Feel not like
Yes, not like the same like the same font. Like in Sweet Romance, there was a little while back where everybody was using Desire Pro. It was a great font. Everybody was using it. That's how you identified Sweet Romances. And I think the Writing Gals, I'll put a link to their group in our description, but they had that because their covers were great. They were spot on, and that font was phenomenal. But then once they started using it, everyone and their dog started using it. I mean, I was using it. It was just like because it was a gorgeous font. But yeah, it was very much like, okay, well, we've copied the font now for every single person in the world for Sweet Romances.
Yeah.
So yeah, so cover design is important.
Yeah.
Cover design, being careful with it is even more important. Just make sure that you're packaging it appropriately. Make sure you're packaging that beautiful, nice ring you just bought for your loved one in beautiful wrapping paper and not in a Walmart bag.
Yeah. And I want to say we would love to have you on here for a spotlight.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you decide that you're camera shy, we do have a worksheet for you as well.
Yeah, exactly. We do have a
yourself.
worksheet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can do it yourself. Again, though, we did an anonymous one last time with Taylor Blaine. So
Yeah,
she wanted us to look at her brand, not at her. Maybe what I need to do is have one of my pen names and we can just dissect that. Maybe that's what we'll do if we don't get anybody for a little bit. That's okay. I've got enough. We'll have enough for a year. Whatever. We'll rip them all apart. I have no problem with that. I'm always like way behind on my stuff. Have you noticed? I'm like, I don't care about my stuff. I'm having too much fun with my clients because it's not my stuff. I get bored with my stuff. So maybe we need to rip apart some of mine. I'm fine with that. Ooh, that'd be kind of rough though. How do you be mean to yourself? How do you dissect yourself?
I'll be mean to you, Bonnie.
Sweet. Sweet. So all of this everything has to do with consistency. Are you delivering the correct message that you should be delivering to your audience and keeping that brand promise? So again, the worksheet is down below. Oh, and we do have a free 7-day challenge to check and see if your brand, or not your brand, but your book and or series is ready for marketing. Go sign up. It's in the link below. It's just above the free Facebook group link where you can go and join our free Facebook group. And we would love to talk with you and do a brand spotlight with you and what we would like to do. I don't want to just be Mandy here all the time, although this is so much fun too. So we could do an anonymous.
Yeah.
Let us do an anonymous. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you put a comment below, we will reply back. Hit subscribe and let us know that you subscribed, and we will reply there too. And don't forget to share with a friend because success is so much better in groups. All right, guys. We look forward to seeing you next time. Hopefully, we see you on the chat with us on Brand Spotlight. Thanks, you guys.